Hi, I'm John Anderson, North American Product Specialist for the 3D Disto. Let's say you have a situation where you need to lay out strategic anchor points or locate points on a ceiling or possibly a wall surface so that you can hang up electrical, plumbing, HVAC, or simply put some fixtures in the wall. But you want those points strategically located onto that surface. To do that, we're going to use our 3D Disto from Leica and the projector software. Initially, we're going to bring in our 3D Disto, set it up either on a tripod or put it on the floor, press the red button to turn it on, and let it self-level. Secondly, we're going to power up our control unit, connect it, in our case via Wi-Fi signal, and get the two connected together. Once we've done that aspect, we're going to launch the projector software. For our example today, we're going to use the wall plane behind me because it's easy to use and easy to do a demonstration on. In order to do the initial layout, we're going to locate the four corners of that wall and define that as our working section. So we're going to locate 1, 2, 3, and 4 points of that wall and then lay out a grid and define where that grid should be on that workspace. We're going to enter our File menu, Applications, launch the projector software. The first thing that's going to come up is part of this Setup Assistant. Measure your working area. Okay? So now we're going to pan the unit up. Did that by hand. So I got my laser dot on the wall. Let's go ahead and put it right down here in the corner, because we need to lay out our work surface and define our plane for where we want to project our points. A little low. Bottom corner, take that shot. Now I'm going to lock my view screen on as I walk through setting up my workspace here. So there's point 1. Let's drive the unit up. I'm going to watch the red dot as it travels up the wall. Stop it. Go ahead and tap on it. I need to move over to the right. A couple of taps. I'm up in the top left corner. Take that shot. And again, in this procedure, we're defining the work zone that we want to project some points to in a couple of minutes. Let's drive it to the right, up to the opposite corner of my work zone. Tap on it to move it down. Visually take a look. I need to move it to the right just a little bit. Move it up just a little bit by tapping on the screen. Visually take a look. My red dot is in the correct position. Now we need to drive the unit down. Locate our final point. Very, very close. Good. We've defined the four corners of our workspace. Turn off the viewfinder. We're going to close this box. We've defined 3 line segments, but we have not closed the box to define our total work area as yet. We're going to hit the close box symbol on the right-hand side to close up, create our space. Measure further points of interest. I do not have any further points of interest at this time. However, if you did want to call out, particularly if you were doing a ceiling application, some vent work, a skylight, or something else that you wanted to work around and take into account in your software, you can define those items at this point. At this time, I'm just going to simply hit OK. I don't have any additional items, so I'm going to hit the check mark that I'm now done laying out my work zone. Now the unit is going to ask me, what is my source for the projected points that I want to put on this workspace? The red dots here is a local source, meaning we're going to define it internally on the software. We could also import a standard DXF file, or we could back up. So in my case, we want to do something locally. Now we're prompted, do we want to define a new grid, use the last grid, measure, or close this list? Well, we want to define a new grid. Enter the column spacing. Right now it's going to default into the last measurement that we had. I'm just going to hit the C button to clear this out. For ease of use, let's just do 2 feet. OK. Now the unit is going to ask us define our row spacing. Again, I don't want 9 feet 10, which is the last value that was entered. Let's clear that. And let's do this one at 4 feet. So I'm going to do 4 feet, okay? Now, what style pattern do we want projected onto that wall? A nice geometric, or do we want it offset? Let's do a nice geometric pattern. We'll tap on that one. Is that what we were thinking about? A 2 foot by 4 foot grid? Yep, that's what we're thinking about. If we had an error at this point, we would then click no and back up. But 2 by 4 is definitely what we want to work with. Hit yes. Now the unit is going to prompt us to move our grid into the final position using the arrow keys and the other software available tools. Okay? Now on screen, you're going to see a representation of our work zone, those 4 walls, or the 4 edges of the wall that we've defined, and then where right now those projected points would show up in that work zone. And you'll see I'm 2 foot spacing in one direction and I'm 4 foot spacing in another direction. If I'm happy with that grid, I would simply hit the checkbox and then hit go. But typically we want to start to center and locate that grid in the middle of our work zone. There's a number of ways that we can do this. Right now you will see that the bottom line is highlighted, meaning the entire grid is laid out and is parallel to that line segment on the bottom. If we wanted to change everything to be parallel to the line on the right-hand side, I would select the line, go to the second page, and I would look at this button here, which is align the grid to that chosen line segment. So let's go ahead and select that. It's going to rotate my grid to that selected line segment. Now let's pick a point on our grid. Right now it says that that point is exactly 4 feet off of the wall. Sorry, it's 4 feet and 9/16 from the corner, but it's 3 feet 6 from that wall segment. If I want this first point to be an even 2 feet from that edge of the wall, let's go ahead and tap there for a second. A pop-up menu is going to come up. 3, 6, and 13/16 is what it is right now. Let's clear that and just hit it even 2 feet. Now you can see that the entire grid has shifted to the right, and now the first line of vertical points will be exactly 2 feet off of that reference point. Now if I look at the balance of this, I can also see that the points on the bottom and the points on the top are not even spacing. So let's select this point on the bottom, and I'm going to select this bottom line and to that point, and that's 1 foot 11 and a half. And again, if I want to change that, I can select that value. Let's set that one at even 1 foot. Clear it, hit 1, OK. Now the entire grid is shifted down to that new position, and we're looking much more balanced in our workspace. The other way to fine-tune this grid is to simply hit the buttons on the right-hand side, and you'll see my values here, 5, 8, and 7/16, is now changing and getting larger as I very, very small increments change that grid and move it to the right. I can also shift it up, I can shift it down. Essentially what we want to do is get that grid, proposed grid, aligned into our work zone to the position that we're happy with. Once we've positioned that grid exactly how we like it, we go ahead and hit the checkbox for OK. Now we're going to select a point and measure. So now we've defined that grid to that workspace. So if I select this point right here in the center, it's going to turn black, and then I hit the Dist button. My 3D Disto is going to rotate and move and put a flashing red dot exactly in that position on our work surface. Now in most cases I may go up to that work surface then, and I may drill that point, I may mark that point, put a post-it note there, some way to mark that point as it's flashing on the wall. Once I have finished with that point, I can either select another point manually, I can use one of my directional arrow keys, or I can use the optional key fob that's included in the kit to rotate from one point to the next. So now that I've marked point 5 on the wall, if I hit the next point below it and hit Dist, the 3D Disto moves down exactly 2 feet and projects that new point onto the wall. You'll also see that the first point that we measured is now a red dot versus a black dot, meaning we've now measured and located that position. Now we would just work through each of those measured points, locate them on the wall for whatever application that we've deemed to mark those positions for.